Want to keep your kids entertained during these crazy times? Get some amazing books from Colleen at Usborne Books and More. They have everything from regular to pop-up to touchy-feeling books for toddlers and babies, all the way to educational books for kindergarten and grade school students, and they even have Shakespeare. Go to https://p9680.myubam.com. The link is going to be in the comments and in the description below. Other than this video is ad-free thanks to Colleen, so support her and support this channel. Thank you guys very much. Thank you, patrons, for helping this channel continue to grow. I really appreciate it. Welcome to the Twisted Tentacle Inn. I'm your innkeeper, Vase Odin, and today we'll be going over some helpful tips for building decks for solo play. Fantasy Flight Games asked the great old ones to write an article regarding deck building for solo versus deck building for multiplayer, and Nate from Lost in Time and Space and myself went ahead and wrote an article for solo deck building that should be out on FFG's website by the time you watch this video. So I'm going to take some of those tips and add on a few more just to help you guys with some solo deck building. Now, because card pools, investigator stats, and investigator abilities can vary so much, it's really just not reasonable to give tips that are too specific. And of course, your individual investigator's strengths and weaknesses play a very large part in building optimal decks. The tips presented in this video are generic and should help new players with just about any investigator, but this is in no way a definitive guide to deck building. We're going to go ahead and make this as list style. The list is in no way, shape, or form in any specific order of best to worst or anything of the sort. And we're just going to briefly discuss each one and list them out for you guys. Here we go. Number 1, free clues are king. If you can, pick up a few cards that are going to help you get clues without taking tests in order to minimize wasting actions on failed investigations. Cards like Scene of the Crime from the Threads of Fate Mythos pack or Drawn to the Flame from the core set are perfect examples of cards that help you do this. Number 2, one free clue without a test is better than 2 clues for 1 investigate action. Generally in solo, a large portion of locations are only going to have 1 clue, and not having to take a test is generally always good. For example, a card like Deduction grants you an extra clue if you succeed at an investigate test. It's probably not as good in solo, and don't get me wrong, it's still a good card and can still be useful, but not as good as something like Working a Hunch, which will just grab you a free clue without taking any test whatsoever. Number 3, extra damage is always good. So cards that deal extra damage per attack are still as good in solo as in multiplayer. In fact, probably even better in solo. Enemy health, except for some elites and bosses, doesn't scale with player count, and a 3 health creature is a huge tempo sink if you don't have a way to kill it quickly, or at least evade it or deal with it. So being able to dish out that extra damage is tremendous in solo. If you're able to, pack in some extra card draw. Cards that provide extra draw are extremely helpful because it'll help you find the cards you need much faster, or cards that help you search the deck for cards. In solo, not having the card you need on the wrong turn could really end your game, and because you're pretty much required to do everything, it's nearly impossible for you to have a solution to everything in just a hand of 5 cards. So being able to get those cards more quickly and have solutions for problems that come up is huge in solo. Speed is the name of the game in solo, and keeping your card costs very low is usually a huge way to keep your speed going in a solo game. Some investigators, of course, are an exception to this, but even with rich investigators, usually your resources are meant to pay for pump cards, so you don't really have a lot of disposable income for heavy cost assets and events, whereas in multiplayer, you generally have a little bit more leeway to just gain resources and spending actions to do that. In solo, you want to keep your costs low so that you can keep moving and doing the things that you need to be doing to advance the act. Tip number 6, do not pack weapons that are very high in cost. Generally, you want to have weapons and combat spells that are affordable enough to play on round 1. If you pull an enemy on the first Mythos phase, you could be in huge trouble right from the very beginning, and it could end your game very early. So a 5 or 6 cost weapon and combat cards are usually cards that you don't want more than 1 copy of. They're okay to have for late game, but if you're packing 2 or 3 of those, you're going to quickly find that you're not going to be able to play those. Number 7, pack some skill cards that provide wild icons. It's easy to underestimate the usefulness and pack less than what you actually need for these. I highly recommend 4 or more cards that each provide 2 or 3 wild icons. If you can, also pack a couple of skill cards that shore up a weakness in combat or investigation, but the wild icons have a versatility that cannot be understated for solo play. And number 8, cards with multiple functions such as some events with double skill icons are also very good. For example, Evidence from the core set can net you a free clue if you kill an enemy, but it can also be committed to intellect icons, so it has a double function there. Another example is Perseverance, a survivor event from the Threads of Fate Mythos pack, which can save you from a killing blow, but can also be committed for 2 willpower icons if you need to use it for that instead. I'm not recommending that you specifically add these cards, but rather look for cards that fit a need within your investigator's goals, but that can also serve more than just one purpose. These cards will add versatility to your deck and make you much more fluid when the time comes and you need something to handle a situation. And that does it for our 8 quick tips for solo deck building. I hope that you found this video helpful, and if you're interested in reading the article that Nate and I wrote for FFG, check out FFG's website and I'll go ahead and link the article below. What other tips do you guys have for solo deck building? I'd love to hear more. Sure that I missed a bunch of different things, and maybe you can come up with something that might be really helpful for others. If you do, go ahead and leave those in the comments down below. And as always, I'm your innkeeper, Vase Odin from the Twisted Tentacle Inn. Check in anytime. I'll talk to you then.